What's good, my beautiful creatures? It is me, MT, and welcome back to the Heavy Spoiler Show, y'all. This is about to be a breakdown for Episode 3 of Creature Commandos. So, without further ado, let's just get into this thing. Episode 3 of Creature Commandos is called Cheers to the Tin Man, and it's a story centered around the badass history of G.I. Robot, who was affectionately called the Tin Man by G.I. Robot's World War II war buddies. The Tin Man is obviously a reference to the 1939 cinematic classic, The Wizard of Oz, which features the Tin Man as one of Dorothy's companions. Episode 3 picks up right where Episode 2 left off, as we see the Creature Commandos and the Bakalova knight Alexei arrive at Victor Frankenstein's abandoned castle right after tracking both the bride and Nina Mazursky there. And since G.I. Robot formed a bond with Nina Mazursky during the last episode when she kindly told him that she would love to dispatch of Nazis together someday, G.I. Robot is particularly concerned with the well-being of his fishy friend. And that concern leads G.I. Robot to thinking back to his first friends that he made during the war, the brave and cunning soldiers of Easy Company, led by Sergeant Frank Rock. Now, if that name sounds familiar to you guys, then you may have recently heard that sources like The Dish and Deadline have confirmed that actor Daniel Craig is in talks to play the character of Sergeant Frank Rock in a future DCU project to be directed by Luca Guadagnino, who recently teamed up with Daniel Craig on the 2024 movie Queer. And while the name of the project has yet to be revealed during these early stages of production, if this episode of Creature Commandos is any indication, it's likely going to be an Easy Company film set during World War II, likely with Sean Gunn reprising his role as G.I. Robot in live action, which would be incredibly cool to see. Sean Gunn is no stranger to playing CG characters in his brother's comic book films, after having played both Weasel in both this show and the Suicide Squad, as well as being the on-set Rocket Raccoon for the entire Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy, so he should feel right at home. The character of Sergeant Rock was introduced in 1959 in the pages of Our Army at War number 81. While the Easy Company squad was introduced 2 years earlier in August of 1957 in Our Army at War number 61. Easy Company was a team comprised of dudes with drastically different personalities, all whipped into high-performing military shape by Sergeant Rock, who everybody in the squad respected deeply. And since World War II required these men to experience and do incredibly emotionally and mentally scarring things, Sergeant Rock made sure that everybody rarely ever used their real legal names, because he didn't want any of the terrible things that they did to be attached to who they were, instead making them use wartime code names such as Bulldozer, Little Sure Shot, Wildman, Canary, and Four Eyes, with G.I. Robot even mentioning these codenames to Dr. Magnus during a later flashback. However, the only name that G.I. Robot mentions during that flashback that wasn't part of Easy Company in the comics is a soldier that G.I. Robot refers to as Bogman. This could be a reference to the Bogman of the Creature Commandos from the year 2000. Comic book G.I. Robot himself was also never a member of Easy Company either, for that matter. Much like I mentioned in my breakdown of the first 2 episodes of this series, comic book G.I. Robot would form a bond with a different sergeant named Sergeant Coker. But honestly, throwing G.I. Robot onto Easy Company was definitely an insanely smart move on James Gunn's part, because this team has definite potential for a dope-ass standalone movie. But anyways, the Apache sniper on the team is codenamed Little Sure Shot, real name Louis Kiahani, and he made his first comic book appearance in Our Army at War number 127. And using his eagle eyes, he would spot an ambush of Nazis, but unfortunately, it would be a little bit too late, leading to a number of soldiers on the squad losing their lives. However, seeing that their assailants were indeed Nazi scum, G.I. Robot would immediately become G.I. Aimbot and send those assholes right back up Satan's vajayjay. In celebrating their victory, the soldier, codenamed Bulldozer, real name Horace Canfield, would lead a toast to the Tin Man after declaring G.I. Robot forever a brother of Easy Company. And experiencing the feeling of human camaraderie for the first time, G.I. Robot would let out a smile before the show's intro theme hits, with that smile being a personal highlight of the episode for me, because look at him! That robot is cheesing hardcore, man! I'm so happy for him! He shoot the Nazis so good! And after the intro, we head back to the present, where the commandos discover the bride tied up inside the mansion and left very much alive. And hey, Cersei was even nice enough to turn the bride's arms back to normal after turning them into wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube men last episode. And concerned for his new war buddy, G.I. Robot immediately asked the bride where Nina is, but luckily, your girl Nina is also okay, and was even given a courtesy bath by Cersei to keep her scaly ass alive. And when G.I. Robot first spots Nina, you can see the name Mateo graffitied on the wall, a super random piece of graffiti that could possibly be a nod towards Major General Mateo Suarez from James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, The Good Suicide Squad. However, since Nina's suit was destroyed last episode, G.I. Robot would have to flex his surprisingly strong robot physique by effortlessly carrying the entire bathtub with one arm. It's crazy to think that something built during the World War II era could be so goddamn strong, but your boy G.I. Robot is simply built different than your average dishwasher. Rick Flag then puts two and two together and realizes that Cersei only left the two women alive in order for the Creature Commandos to leave the princess completely unprotected. And while the Commandos are on their way back to the castle, we get yet another flashback to G.I. Robot's past. Back when G.I. Robot was invited onto a talk show to demonstrate how powerful and effective of a weapon that he is. And while the host is hyping G.I. Robot up, he notes that G.I. has taken out over 1,000 enemy troops during his service. However, during G.I. Robot's disastrous but hilarious appearance on the show, he does manage to pique the interest of a particular scientist in the audience named Dr. William Magnus. Despite G.I. Robot's inability to fully relate and communicate with other non-robot individuals due to his rather rigid programming, Dr. Magnus still saw massive potential within G.I. Robot because of the sentience that he still appears to have underneath all of that anti-Nazi coding, even remarking that G.I. Robot is truly the first true piece of artificial intelligence that the world has ever seen. And since G.I. Robot clearly has no future career doing publicity for the United States Army like some sort of Captain America, the United States government allowed Dr. Magnus to closely study G.I. Robot and his inner workings within his lab. This is a rather significant moment in the history of the DCU because through studying G.I. Robot's inner sentience, it is inevitable that Dr. Magnus will end up creating one of DC Comics' most unique and fun superhero teams out there, known as the Metal Men, as Dr. William Magnus was the creator of the Metal Men in the DC Comics. First introduced in the pages of Showcase number 37 from 1962, the Metal Men were a squad of robots that were built by Dr. Magnus out of 6 different kinds of liquid metal, with each of their names corresponding to their specific metal. The original 6 Metal Men were named Gold, who was the team leader, followed by Iron, Lead, Tin, Mercury, and Platinum, with Platinum being the only robot on the original squad modeled after a woman. And she legit believed that she was a real woman too. So much so that she would tell everyone to call her Tina instead of Platinum. Magnus would also add another female robot to the team decades later in the pages of 2007's Superman Batman number 34, and since that robot was made out of copper, her ass was given the name Copper. Go figure. But it would be Tina specifically that would fall in love with Dr. Magnus, much like how the bride would fall in love with her creator, Victor Frankenstein, in this show. But unfortunately for Tina, Dr. Magnus never really reciprocated her love for him. Likely because Magnus prefers his platinum dumpies to be of the human variety. And the reason why Tina had such a strong attraction towards her human master was partly because of a faulty piece of technology that lies at the core of each one of these metal men. And it's a piece of Magnus technology called a responsometer, which crafted the personalities of each of these artificial intelligences. So yeah, this scene appears to heavily imply that Dr. Magnus was able to create his responsometers by studying G.I. Robot's unique AI system that afforded him the ability to think freely for himself. This means that the Metal Men have likely been existing within the DCU for decades now, which is super exciting to me personally because I feel like this team has massive potential within James Gunn and Peter Safran's growing cinematic universe because of how drastically different each one of these robots are from one another while still being on the same team. Like, I believe this team very much has the potential to be the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles of the DCU in their own fun robotic way. And I truly cannot imagine anyone better to tackle a Metal Men project outside of James Gunn because that man has had a love of robots pretty much his entire life. Like, James Gunn was legit a massive fan of the Metal Men back when he was a child, and even used the Metal Men as inspiration for the first comic book that he ever created called Super Robots, that James Gunn wrote and drew himself back when he was 8 years old. And James Gunn's love for robots is especially expressed within the pages of his incredibly written novel, heavily based on his own life, called The Toy Collector, which came out in the year 2000. A portion of the narrative of that book shows Gunn's love for collecting toy robots like Robbie the Robot from the 1956 movie The Forbidden Planet. And he would even put Robbie the Robot on the cover of his Toy Collector novel as well. Like, if you haven't read James Gunn's The Toy Collector yet, do yourself a favor and do it, because that book is honestly such a hilariously wild yet very thoughtful read, and I binged the hell out of that book years ago, faster than I have ever read a book in my entire life, so I highly recommend it. But only if you're an adult, because that book is definitely not for kids. Like, not at all. But anyway, switching back to the present, Cersei and the Sons of Themyscira have begun their siege on Princess Alana's castle, with the Creature Commandos arriving in the middle of the bloodshed. One member of the Sons can be seen wearing a Sons of Themyscira hat that also ironically says the word soft on it. Hilarious commentary about how stupid-ass neo-Nazi groups like the Proud Boys are actually soft as baby shit without their guns in large numbers. Then we are given yet another flashback set decades from the days of World War II, a time when G.I. Robot is nothing but a collectible from a bygone era. A man named Sam walks into a war memorabilia shop that has G.I. Robot for sale and is immediately sold into buying him, with this particular shop piquing Sam's interest, most likely because of the owner's own racist roots, with these two Confederate soldier uniforms being a massive hint towards what kind of person this shop owner is. And the character of Sam is of course played by James Gunn's close personal friend, Michael Rooker, who has worked with James Gunn on a number of projects together, including the Guardians of the Galaxy films, The Suicide Squad, Brightburn, The Belko Experiment, and Slither. And when Sam first brings G.I. Robot to his home, he shows off his garage, which includes this rising sun flag in the corner, a flag that Japan used to fly during the days when they allied themselves with the Axis forces. And because of this, the use of this flag today usually has some bad connotations, which is why this neo-Nazi of a man is a big fan of it. And as G.I. Robot gets settled into his new life, he, Sam, and Sam's cats all sit together on a couch and watch the 1967 war movie, The Dirty Dozen, a movie centering around 12 convicts who are made to go on a suicide mission for the Allied forces. A fun little tongue-in-cheek nod towards DC Comics' own Suicide Squadron, while also being a bit of foreshadowing towards G.I. Robot's own involvement in Amanda Waller's Task Force M. And of course Sam would make the fatal mistake in bringing G.I. Robot to one of his stupid-ass gatherings of racist men with erectile dysfunction, a group that calls themselves the Hub City National Socialist Club, with Hub City actually being the birthplace of Victor Sage, the hero known as The Question. And it's a city that would make its first appearance in Blue Beetle #1 from 1967. And at this club, a number of white supremacist tattoos can be seen on the skin of these skinheads, like this one that says White Power, this tattoo that has the Celtic cross on it, and this one over here that is just the number 88, with 88 being a secret code for the phrase Hail Hitler, because the number 8 corresponds to the 8th letter of the alphabet H, so that 88 is actually just two H's side by side. And the second that G.I. Robot realizes that he is indeed at a Nazi get-together, he immediately blasts Sam in the face, continuing one of James Gunn's favorite pastimes of murdering the characters that Michael Rooker plays in his movies. Like, if Rooker is in a James Gunn joint, there's pretty much a 95% chance that that dude is going to die. Then, after G.I. Robot exterminates all 32 of the club members, we are brought back to the present, where Rick Flag finally gives G.I. Robot the go-ahead to exterminate some Nazi scum, leading to a G.I. Robot hovering in the sky like some sort of angel of death before raining hellfire on some lame-ass incels. And not long after this, we get a quick flashback of a reference to the iconic VJ Day and Times Square photograph that was taken the day Japan surrendered during World War II, with G.I. Robot apparently standing off to the side when the iconic kiss happened. This is then soon followed by the memory of G.I. Robot first arriving to Amanda Waller's containment facility at Argus, where he was apparently incarcerated with a host of other enhanced human individuals. And while walking to his cell, G.I. Robot walks past 4 extremely obscure DC Comics villains, including the Shaggy Man, the Reaper, Animal Vegetable Mineral Man, and the Crimson Centipede. Shaggy Man made his first appearance in Justice League of America number 45 from 1966 as a JLA villain. The Reaper made his first appearance as a Batman villain in Batman 237 from 1971. The Doom Patrol villain Animal Vegetable Mineral Man was introduced in 1964's Doom Patrol number 89, and Wonder Woman 169 from 1967 is when the Crimson Centipede made his first appearance fighting Wonder Woman. However, shifting things back to the present, G.I. Robot is unfortunately promptly destroyed by one of Cersei's blasts, which is a huge bummer if this indeed means the end of G.I. Robot in the DCU. But I highly doubt that G.I. Robot will remain dead for very long, considering that the number 2 on his helmet implies that he was the second model of G.I. Robot produced, likely after the destruction of the first G.I. Robot, Jake 1. So chances are we will see a third G.I. Robot appear later on at some point. But anyways, with creepy and angry men at her bedroom door, Princess Ilana is then forced to grab her gun out of her safe, using the passcode 3522. And while I don't exactly know what 3522 means specifically for Ilana's life, March 5th, 1922 is the first time the very first Dracula movie, Nosferatu, was shown to an audience. The inspiration for one of the original members of the Creature Commandos from the comics, Vincent Velcro, a character that I went over in my breakdown of episodes 1 and 2. However, Cersei would then arrive and quickly disarm Ilana. But luckily, an enraged weasel would come in to save the day by violently scratching and biting Cersei's body. A moment that I found a little bit hilarious considering that this was Sean Gunn as Weasel avenging Sean Gunn's G.I. Robot. And then the episode of course ends with Cersei telling the Creature Commandos that they doomed the world by stopping her from eliminating Princess Ilana, which kind of makes me wonder if Cersei has some type of intel from the future that she might have gotten via supernatural means while she was back on Themyscira. A future that might just involve a global conflict triggered by Princess Ilana herself. Or hell, this is a wild theory, but what if Princess Ilana became pregnant with Rick Flag Sr.'s child after they both did the deed last episode, and that child ends up somehow becoming a global threat in the future as leader of Pakolistan? Who knows? All I know is that I'm super excited to hopefully get some answers to this very cryptic ending on next week's episode of Creature Commandos. And oh my god, wouldn't you know it, it is the end of this breakdown for episode 3 of Creature Commandos. What do you guys think of this episode? Let us know in the comments right here, down below, right there. I honestly never thought that I would be attracted to a cartoon fish lady in my life. When the movie The Shape of Water came out, I did not comprehend why the woman fell in love with the fish man. After watching this series, I understand. I know. It makes sense to me now. I see the vision. Anyways, you can follow me at Mastertainment on Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube, wherever I am on the internet. But most importantly, follow Heavy Spoilers here on YouTube by hitting that subscribe button and that notification bell to get notifications for every time we upload a video. But yeah, I've been MT, you guys have been amazing, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye.